Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I would like to thank everybody for joining us and everybody in the gallery. We got a large crew today. I'm not sure how many people we have online, but wanted to thank everybody for joining us. I'd like to call this planning and development meeting to order on April 19th, 2023 at 9 a.m. Approval of the agenda. I just reached out. We're going to pull the 1383 Silver Sands VP off the agenda, but we are going to have a large discussion on that. So we have some folks in the galley that are going to speak, and we have our staff here as well. So we're going to do a little update on that, and just Scott will give us an update when we get there. Anyhow, anybody have any other additions or deletions? Scott, I would just, when we're talking zoning bylaw, I just like maybe we could add the zoning bylaws and just an update, because I know we are going through some other zoning adjustments or amendments, and just maybe
add zoning bylaw.
Yeah, let's add that. Let's add that to just before Silver Sands. So let's new business. Maybe that will be A.
Okay.
And we'll move Silver Sands to B. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Recommend that the Planning and Development Committee meeting on April 19th, 2023 be approved as circulated. As amended, sorry. Can I have a motion? Ian? Seconder? John? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Deb. Thanks for attending online. Okay, approval of the minutes. Recommend that the minutes of the Planning and Development Committee meeting held on April 5th, 2023 be adopted. May I have a mover? John, seconder? Ian? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, item number 4, development service update. Scott, do you have an update for us?
Thank you, Chair. So here you can see the current applications. A couple of them were going to be considered today. You see those ones in bold. Some other ones that were considered at the last Planning and Development Committee meeting will likely be going to council at the next council meeting. But yeah, and then some of them were waiting for additional information, or they're on hold by the applicants, but can answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Deb, you're good?
Yep, all good.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you very much, Scott. Okay. Terms of reference. I asked Scott to put this, send this out, terms of reference. Just, I think, just before we're new, we have John and Ian are both new. So I'm not sure if you saw the terms of reference.
Oh.
So I thought it would be good for you guys to have a look at them. And I know even there might be some updates we might want to do to those, because even the dates are wrong on there. So because we changed the dates and the times and things like that. So just thought of bringing it to your attention, and everybody have a review of it, and maybe we can circle back at another meeting and make comments.
And I emailed them to everybody, and then I put them on this agenda just in case you're out and about and you want to find them quick. You can find them on this agenda, probably faster than in your email. But
okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, new business. Scott, how would you like to give us an update on the zoning, where we're at with the amending zoning bylaw?
yeah, so we have the new zoning bylaw, which is adopted in February of this year. And we are looking at some updates to the zoning bylaw, like the results of the housing strategy and some of the recommendations from the housing strategy. So we'll be bringing those to council. And then some, like, call them housekeeping updates, where just notice where there's some inconsistencies and things. So fixing those. And we're also looking at other places that we can adjust the zoning bylaw. One of them is the next item is Silver Sands. They do have some issues with some of the setbacks and things. So there's a place we can address some of those things. And then some other, density type things, or we can just tweak the numbers a little bit, make better for things. But so that'll likely be coming to the next committee meeting is the housing strategy and the housekeeping zoning bylaw amendments, and then those can go to council. So.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I actually just have a bit of and I don't think it's on this agenda, but it came across as an email. We're not considering MUR1 zoning or MUR2 zoning for, okay. You know what I'm referring to on, yeah, okay, thank you.
That's.
Perfect. Thank you. It was just I think you were included on it. It was just an email from a constituent suggesting there was a rezoning application coming. It was on concerning the legacy. Council already dealt with that. So I was just clarifying that the information that was in that letter is not correct, that we're okay.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Deb, you okay?
Yep, no, all good. I'll be in Sycamoose for the next few weeks. So it's good coming to the next meeting because I'll be there for it.
Okay, thank you. Scott, none of this, we don't have any pending applications at Silver Sands or Sycamoose Houseboats, or there's no really pending applications. We're not in a big rush, are we? I know we want to get it right. I mean, we were, this has been going on for quite a few years, the zoning bylaw review, and it's taken some time to get it in place, and it's a big document. So we're not in a big rush to kind of run it through next week or anything like that at the next council meeting. So I just want to say, I don't think if there's nothing's pressing, there's no applications or we're not holding any applications up for a sun deck or a garage or anything like that over at Silver Sands. So we want to make sure we get it right and move on. Okay, so just 1 sec there, Terry. Oh, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, we are at the point where we're holding it up. The reason for us being here today, I sent an email out to everybody on behalf of the Strata Corporation. Is the proposal that I've had 2 meetings now with staff and the mayor actually, and we think that we know in our minds that our zoning was when the new zoning was created for the district, ours was taken away by mistake. It should have been left. We're a site-specific zoning, right? And staff resolve for that was what was supposed to be presented today, was to put a covenant on our lots. And if you read the covenant, it would be a nightmare for us and the district of Sycamoose. No one can ever understand it, ever.
Okay.
So what we would like to do is proceed to mayor and council to request that our site-specific zoning be reenacted. We went before mayor and council in 2019 and had it revised. And the reason that it was that staff at the time had recommended that we could go ahead and do it instead of waiting for the new zoning was because it was a site specific and it was not thought that it was going to be part of the new zoning bylaw for the district. So what we would request is that we can go to mayor and council and show them. I think one of the big things that I've come up with is it's been the last few days. We weren't notified. None of us on, and we're out of town. Everybody's out of town, right? So we weren't notified of these changes of the meetings, etc. And I can assure you, we would have been there screaming.
Yeah.
Because what it's done is it's put every lot in our subdivision as non-conforming.
I understand.
And that's just absolutely outrageous. So we don't want, what we're here today to say, we really don't want that proposed covenant. And if you'd like to discuss why we don't want it, I'm certainly happy to. I would just sooner see it go and let us proceed to the mayor and council.
Okay, no, that sounds good. Now, but we're not holding up anybody's with a permit, right?
Yes, that was why I had, yes, we've got 3 people that are wanting to do stuff that they can't because they don't know.
Okay,
Right, what their setbacks are, what the setback rule. There's also some other items that have come up that we would like to discuss. Such as all of a sudden, where the wheels fell off the wagon, I think is staff started treating park models separate of the other RVs. And they're park model trailers. And when we developed it, I'm the developer, and that zoning was the zoning that we worked with the district of Sycamores to create. And like I say, it was revised in 2019 to what we have today. So yes, we have 3 people right now that are wanting to put park models on their lots. That's why when you see lot 13 was on hold right now. He doesn't know what to do, right?
okay,
Because he's going off the zoning. When he made his plans,
Yeah.
it was based on the 2019 revision that we had.
okay.
So
Okay, so we are in a little bit of a hurry then. Okay, so we'll work on that. So I just wanted to, you know, find out if you guys were in a hurry. So
yes, sir.
so what we'll do is, let's do a little bit of a discussion. We'll move on to the next item, which is your development. And we'll just get a quick staff report. And then we'll also talk to our building inspector and our fire marshal, and then we'll also have you guys speak on it as well. So
Okay.
that work good?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, the fire marshal was there when our approval was done in 2019, or even when I first did the subdivision. I mean,
Yeah.
I think because I was gonna say where that's one place where, another place where the wheels came off the other side of the wagon was, if you look at the designation that staff is giving from the OCP, they're saying it's waterfront medium density. And it never was. It never was. If you look at your own zoning and your own OCP, medium density residential has nothing to do with our resort.
Yeah.
Go back and look at what Melinda did, and how it was designated, or how and that's really where the wheels fell off the wagon is they're calling it something that is, we're not a residential medium density project.
yeah. Okay, no, thanks, Terry. Appreciate it. Okay, anything else, Scott? Do you have anything else? We can move on to item number B, which is the Silver Sands Road.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna hold off on the development variance permit, and we're gonna just kind of a little more of a discussion, but we do recognize you guys are in a hurry. You got a couple clients, customers there that want to build a park model or shed or something. So we'll work on that quickly. All right, moving on to 1383 Silver Sands Road. Scott, you want to do a quick report on this?
You, Chair, I can. So we did receive a request, and it was to recognize park models as RVs, reinstate RSVP 1 zone as it was before, have move-in fees removed. So that'd be building permits for moving in park models, to allow steps on deck carports to be attached and not consider secondary buildings, and to allow Okanagan rooms to be attached and not be considered secondary buildings. So we're trying to address them all those issues with, you know, a bunch of different tools. So the RSVP 1 zone, to reinstate that, the zoning issue, you know, I did provide like a side-by-side comparison where I redlined the RSVP 1 and the RSVP zone. And really, I think the only contentious issue is the setback. So I think the RSVP 1, you know, I've dealt with, you know, worked for a municipality, we had 43 different zones, or we had 43 municipalities, each with a different zone. CSRD has 12 zoning bylaws, 12 different zones. I go and I probably look at our zoning bylaw 5-6 times a day. I'm not just, you know, once a week, and Sarah and Stephanie are probably the same. And we really think this RVP 1 zone is easier for us to do our job and give people advice on what their next step is if they want to do something. I think if you compare them side by side, I think the RVP1 zone is much better zone, much easier to read. And really when it comes down to it, I think it gives people in Silver Sands and elsewhere really what they're looking for these days with the types of development. And it really comes down to the setbacks where, where the issue is. I think some of the setbacks we can address through that housekeeping zone. I think if we want to address the setbacks quickly, then a DVP. So that's why we prepared that variance. Stephanie, could you go to the variance? So here's the variance. I think we've made it very clear that someone can understand it right now. We did change the setback from 0.5 meters to 1.5 meters. And we did that, with lots of discussion with this committee. We had the committee, we had the fire chief, we had a tape measure on the floor. What does a zone look like? What does the setback in one of these places look like? And really for us, it's not the setback from that imaginary dotted line. We really don't care where the building is on that imaginary dotted line. What we care about is the setback between the two units, between a park model and one of the additions. So really we want 3 meters between structures. So I think this is pretty clear. We can vary the setback for this development where there can be 3 meters between structures, and that's to recognize what existed prior. On another property, Greg's here. We went through this, Greg, with Greg Darrow on his thing, and we actually went the opposite way. We said, let's get rid of this between structures things. Let's come up with a setback of 1.5 meters from each property line. So then we don't have to look at what the neighbor's doing every time and no one gets boxed out. That's how we came up with this. We were very thoughtful about it. We had advice from our building official. We had advice from our fire chief. And I thought that would be the best way to address that setback issue. With the Okanagan rooms and those things, these units get delivered with a CSA stamp on them. And, it's like a toaster off the shelf, ready to go. You plug it in. And that's okay. And I've had conversations with the employee at CSA who's in charge of this. And I had a conversation with the chair of the Z241 CSA standard. Both of them had the advice that you really shouldn't be nailing anything to these units. You shouldn't attach anything with a hammer and nail. You can actually get double wide park models, and a lot of them come out of the factory with an addition, like an Okanagan room that goes on, but that's all coming out of the factory with specifications on how they're going to be attached and how they should be attached. So I think the way to address this issue is through policy that council adopts that says, hey, we'll allow park models and we'll allow additions, Okanagan rooms and all that stuff, but under certain conditions. If they come from the factory with an addition, that's fine. If they come from the factory in 2 parts, you're putting them together, we get that. But if you're buying 1 unit from the factory and the second room is coming from another factory in another place, then we have to have some conditions where those can be attached. The advice I got from other jurisdictions is they require a third-party engineer on all these things. If someone's coming in with a unit that's coming from the factory as a CSA unit, they're going to require an engineer to say, hey, everything's going to be safe if you marry these 2 units. So I think that's coming. We'll have a policy to address that. And then the building regulations and siting. In the past, people have gotten permits. They have gotten permits. Some building officials have required permits. Some haven't. Since I've been here, I've asked that we get building permits for park model RVs. And really it's siting permits. So it's $150. Someone submits a plan to us, we can make sure it's going to be in the right spot. And it's not so much the unit, once the unit's delivered, it's sitting there. We can move it. Yeah, you can move it, but often there's a concrete pad for it. So let's say before you pour the concrete pad, before you order the unit, before you order the addition going on your unit, let's make sure it's going to fit in the siting. So we're looking at amendments to our building regulation that would call it a siting permit. So when we reduce the fee of that, so before someone brings a unit in, They show us a drawing, we can look at it, we can say, okay, you got your pad in the right spot, you got your unit in the right spot. If you want to add your Okanagan room, it'll be in the right spot. And then we won't have any variances in the future. And that's where we saw in the past. And the Strata Council asked if there's any variances, they want to get them, they want to approve them, and then they want it, and then they can bring them back to council. So, and we do get complaints, and the majority of our variances have come from complaints, and it's typically not the park model. It's the carport they're adding where they want to put a cover over it. So I just think that, you know, if we have that citing permit, then that'll solve a lot of issues. People still require building permits for carports and those Okanagan rooms, but we'll require the citing permit for the units. When it arrives, it's gonna solve that issue. And then, so I think, yeah, we're kind of looking at kind of multiple problems and dealing with them with, you know, a variance, which is the fast and easy way to address this issue in this park. The zoning bylaw, which we can tweak a little bit to address some of the other issues in this park, and then some that might come up in other places. And then the policy on the Okanagan rooms and additions, and then through the building regulation through citing. So yeah, it's gonna take a little while. It's a complex problem, but I think it's pretty simple. And I like this solution for the DVP to answer this question right away today if you need to. But maybe just a little history on how we came up with the setbacks and the setback issue, which has been an issue. We have the building official and the fire chief here if you want to ask them to speak to it.
Okay, great. Thanks for that explanation there, Scott. Kenny or Brett, do you guys want to go first?
So we did.
Maybe I'll just get you, maybe I should get you guys just pop up to the mic. Thank you.
Morning.
Morning. Thanks, Kenny.
So when we've been talking about these setbacks, there are quite a few things that we do take into account. You know, looking at it from a safety standpoint, from building code perspective as well, it's a challenging situation because the building code does have regulations regarding spatial separation calculations, which essentially means how close you can go to the property lines and what levels of protection you need to have the closer you get to these property lines. When we're talking CSA Z241, which would be a park model, that doesn't necessarily apply. So those safety regulations aren't there. Whereas with these Okanagan rooms, these other additions, the carports, the garages, the sheds, those building code requirements do apply. And so we have to balance the safety side of things with that as well and look at how close they truly are to neighboring structures and what that exposure rate is going to be. The other piece of it as well, which I know Brett can comment on as well, is regarding the 10-minute response time. Being that with the train tracks where they are, we would that area is outside of the 10-minute fire department response time as spelled out in the building regulations. So that means when we're actually doing these calculations, we're dividing the limiting distance in half of what it actually is before applying these regulations. So it does mean in a situation where you'd have 1.5 meters, or even 3 meters between the units, you're dividing that in half to give each of the units half of that setback, and then you're dividing that in half yet again to do the calculations. So that's meaning you're going to have fire rating requirements, no window openings, limited eave projections, and quite a few other items along with that. So it is that balancing act of trying to provide the level of safety, which is what the building code is there for, with also meeting the needs of what the park actually would like and would like to have, and as well as the residents. A lot of the safety pieces of it are a bit of a concern the closer they get, obviously. So this 3 meters between units is kind of like a bare minimum as far as safety wise from a building code perspective. But I don't know if Brett wants to talk about a little bit more on from the fire protection side of it as well, because that is a concern as well with these properties.
Okay, thanks.
You're up there, Kenny.
Go ahead.
I just want to, when we let's say we have a new development for park models, what's the separation that we ask for now? Say, the park models behind G&G. What's our separation that we ask for that? Is that different than? Or Scott? Yeah, Scott, anybody.
So I guess behind G&G, those are Z240s, those are mobile homes.
Right.
And I believe it's 1.5 meters from the lines, like the lines between units. So the interior side parcel line would be 1.5 meters.
So just so I'm correct, that is dealt with differently than an RV or trailer model. And can you just explain why? Just for my information, more than anything.
So
Is it fire rating or is it?
So, and maybe Kenny wants to speak to it, but 1.5 meters is kind of the standard because you need that 3 meters.
Yeah, so the big difference between park models and which a park model is designed under a CSA Z241 standard, whereas a mobile home would be done under a Z240 MH standard. So different levels of code, essentially they're an alternative to BC building code. And so a mobile home will actually be designed to meet all of the life safety requirements and the comfort requirements that you would traditionally see in closer to what a single family would be versus a park model RV, which is exactly what that is meant to be. It's an RV that is not occupied full time. It is meant to be intermittently occupied, but it's meant to be a full-time occupation. So with the Z240 MH, so a mobile home, we do look at the spatial separation calculation between units, 2 property lines, things like that, other structures. Then that way you have those correct limitations, those correct safety factors that are written into the building code for that level of protection. Versus where a park model, that's not in that standard. There's no requirement for that. A lot of the life safety pieces of it in the ventilation requirements, things like that are very different under those standards. And we don't have the same spatial separation calculations under the park model standards. So when you're doing your reviews of what the requirements are going to be for those walls, they do vary between a park model RV versus a mobile home.
Yeah,
One more.
okay, go ahead, Ian.
And just so with the mobile home component, obviously they're fire rated to some degree, but is there differences even in the mobile home component versus park model when it comes to that construction or?
Yes, so a lot of that does come down to, again, that spatial separation calculation.
Yeah.
So with a spatial separation calculation, you're taking what your distance is to property lines and determining what the allowable openings are. So the number of windows that are allowed to face that property line, along with the fire rating requirements as well. That is all included as part of that spatial calculation, which you wouldn't do under a park model or you would do under a mobile home.
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks, Kenny. Anything else? Oh, Brett, do you want to comment before we move on to?
Sure, yeah.
Terry and Milo?
So just from experience, we've actually dealt with fires in your particular facility. Just to give you an example, it was an RV. It was about the 0.5 meter or thereabouts spacing away from a fence. And there was a fire in the slide that was roughly in the middle of the RV, and it was up against the fence. So we were able to contain the fire. We were able to get there quickly enough to knock it out. And the problem was the fire had occurred in the actual slide. And in order to fully extinguish it, I had to send a firefighter around to the other side to try and deal with it. What we didn't realize was the slide was already pushed out. So we had about 3 inches from the fence to the actual slide. And it was a good 6-foot fence, so all good. So a crew member actually ended up crawling on his hands and knees with a hose to get underneath that slide and try and put that thing out. And the problem I have with a 0.5 meter setback is it's really not a workable space for fire protection. I know there's a lot of things people say, well, you can access it from another side, you can do all these different things, but it still comes down to true safety for me. If I'm going to send people into those environments, it's a really dangerous decision. We have to make sure that we're protecting our crews and we're trying to protect property and life safety and all those other factors as well. By having those reduced setbacks, how that one got by me, I'm not exactly sure, but honestly, if I'd realized that we were saying, oh, it's okay to have 19 inches. That's 19 inches there. As a setback from a fence to a building is not exactly a safe operating space for firefighters. Okay, so what is the new proposal is 4 feet, 6 inches, there, notice that's pretty close to what the 1.5 meters is, okay? That's a safe operating space for a firefighter who's fully geared up, dragging a hose line, who's had to come from Sycamoose and potentially is delayed by a train. I just sat at an intersection the other day. It was about 12 minutes for the train to go through. So roughly 7 to 10 minutes for us to respond to the call, get in the trucks and get to that intersection. Again, depending on traffic. And if a train comes, we're another 10 to 12 minutes. So we're over 25 minutes for us to show up with your unit on fire, potentially threatening your neighbor's place and potentially threatening numerous units. If a wind's going in the middle of that fire, you're going to lose multiple structures. Okay, and especially if we're talking a 1/2 meter space, it's really not ideal. NFPA, so National Fire Protection Association, recommends 3 meters between structures. Okay, sorry, to the property lines, 3 meter setbacks for every property. Now, obviously, there's houses and things like that involved, potentially less fuel involved, but that is our greatest concern is safety of our crews, safety of the residents, and protection of their properties. We don't really want to lose multiple structures. That's not good firefighting principles.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Brett. Really appreciate that information. Okay, Terry, did you want to respond and just
Yeah.
you just pop up to the, I guess the mic's not working. So
I think
it is.
Said here that they're making a distinction between a park model and an RV, and there is none, or there was none. There isn't in those type of resorts anywhere. What we've done over there and what has been approved, and I'm surprised what the fire marshal said, because the fire marshal approved it. When I first did the development, it was a 3-foot setback, right? That's what was agreed on. Then I did the second phase. I didn't know if they were going to sell, so I did it in 2 phases. When I did the second phase in 2008, again, we got approval at the 3 feet. In 2019, we again got approval to reduce that to 0.5 meters, right? What I have suggested and what was discussed at the time, if there's going to be a structure, because we can have trailers and coaches and everything. We can have 10 a day come in and out and be there for a few days and go. We're an RV resort. We're not a permanent structure. And I understand what Brett's saying, but again, he's the one that approved them. What we have there, right? Were we approved a fire hazard? Sycamore Sands down the road has the very same situation as us, right? If we want, what was discussed prior was if somebody puts a building, i.e. One of those Arizona rooms, or if they in fact put a carport that comes too close to the neighbors, it has to be done with a building permit, and the district can require that if it's too close, then you have to put a firewall, an accepted firewall on whatever you put, even if it's post for a carport. You can demand that it's done. Like Brett says, even if it's 5 feet away, if there's a 6-foot fence there, it isn't going to make a heck of a lot of difference, right? We have a situation in Kelowna very recently where one house burned and it burned 3 others. Fires are fires, right? I understand. I totally understand the better safety that you have, obviously, but I mean, even if you take a look at the proposal they have now, is it says, okay, they agree with what we're being asked to approve here today. Okay, we agree. You can bring it over to the 0.5 meters again. That's what they're fighting against, right? If you take a look at what's being presented today in this covenant, the agreement is you can bring it over, but on the other side, you have to have 5 feet. That means if my neighbors built it at the 0.5 meters, I have to be 8.5 feet over on my side before I can do anything. You can cover that off with a building permit that restricts what is allowed. If I go for a building permit and I want to put an Arizona room on, the District of Sycamoose building bylaws have to be adhered to. And you can say, no, that's good, you can put it over there. Nobody's gonna, anybody that's doing an Arizona room or anything is gonna allow themselves room to come down the side of the property. They're not gonna lock themselves out of the back. So, but say an Arizona room, right? You're 1.5 feet, which they're suggesting is okay in their most recent covenant or proposal that we're here for today. It just doesn't make any sense. We went through this process already 3 times.
Yeah.
We were approved for it. Were we approved a depth cut? I don't think so. Right? I mean, until the fire department got there, when the one that Brett's talking about the fire, 2 guys looked after it with garden hoses until they got there. Right? Fires are fires.
Yeah. Terry, can I just ask you on that? When you have a RV come in and he's supposed to be 1.5 meters from the property line. And he parks his motorhome there and then he pushes his pop out and it goes to like 6 inches from the fence. Does anybody regulate that?
No, we don't really have, right, because they're private lots,
Mhm.
right? But we did have the thing in our bylaw that if you had a pop out, it had to be a certain distance from the property, right? And certainly the neighbors are gonna complain if it's too close, if it's, you know, if they think it's a fire hazard, obviously, people are gonna complain.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And actually, but there wasn't, I guess on behalf of the strata, I obviously can only make recommendations, but they have asked me to come forward because I have been through this. I'm the only person in the room that's been through this for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
To reinstate our zoning, right? Like I say, they're agreeing in this covenant, yeah, bring it over to the 0.5 again. Well, the only thing, cover it off with building permits, and the strata doesn't want to see a fire hazard either, but we don't want to have 138 non-conforming properties sitting in there, and that's exactly what we're gonna have. And all of a sudden it becomes disclosures when people sell and nobody's gonna know if this covenant goes on. If you sat down and looked at this district bylaws, you might see that it should be whatever fee, but you would have to do a title search and then go through all the covenants and pick out the one that says that identifies this covenant. So no, it doesn't make any sense, absolutely. And I apologize, I understand what they're saying and I understand but you can cover it off with building permits. And just so everybody knows, I know Scott says, oh, you're Wild West over there. You guys, I gave a list here of what was it, 11, 12 building approval officers or building inspectors that we've dealt with, and nobody wanted, they didn't want us to bother them with additions for carports and that kind of stuff. The only time when they said they wanted us to start getting building permits was when 2 of the owners wanted to put and did put, with approval of mayor and council, the Arizona rooms on. We call them Okanagan, or they ended up getting called Okanagan rooms.
Yeah.
And they were done with building permits. They had to make sure that they had that fire protection that you were looking for, right?
Yeah.
So, or they wouldn't have gotten it, right? So what we really don't want is all of a sudden to have 138 non-conforming properties. We don't want that, and we don't think there's any reason. And like I say, there shouldn't be a distinction. Scott mentioned about being charged move-on fees for park models, right? So they can know where they sit. So they can look at the pads. There's no requirements for pads. We have people having them just on the ground. We have people who have their entire lawn concrete, right? It's a mobile home park. And if you take a look, if you go anywhere throughout certainly the interior BC, you'll see that everybody is actually, many of them are far, far worse than ours as far as having units close together and stuff. So no, we really, we don't want it, 138. A lot of approvals. We went through all the approvals. I was at every meeting. I was at Sands meetings, and I can tell you that they're probably going to be the next ones down here because they're the same thing.
Okay.
Like, as a matter of fact, if you take a look at their resource, because they were some stuff was grandfathered, they have one service that goes right down the middle of the property. Because when they were a corporation, after they seen what I was doing, they came along and they said, okay, we want to be a strata too. And I helped show them how to go through the process. They have one service that goes and then units hook onto that from each side. So they were given a variance down to, I don't know, 36 inches between their units, right? But again, they're mobile units. I understand. You talk about park models. Okay, people sit in there. I think the longest unit we have in there is a trailer. Alice. It's been there since 2007, probably. It's on blocks. Hasn't moved, right? And we have lots of others like that, right?
Yeah.
If you have a trailer, fifth wheel coach, lots of them. That's all they do. They never move. They bring them there. They set them. They put them on blocks. Exact, like
Yeah,
apartment.
we understand. Yeah. Okay. Kelly, anybody else have anything you want to add? So Scott, what's your comment? Like, are you feeling we can sit down and work this out as a site specific, or do we want to carry on with having them come to council? I mean, it would be nice to have you guys sit down and get it all sorted out so that and I thought we were there, but obviously something changed and we're not there, but.
Yeah, I think we, examining the different tools we have, so the policy and the citing permit, I think would be two big steps forward to providing clarity when people are looking to buy units. I think also the AGM is coming up at Silver Sands at the end of May, and presenting this information to the Strata Council and the people who this is going to affect would also be a really good idea. Just so that people are getting what regulations apply to them now and what solutions we're proposing later, and then maybe getting some consensus from that group before bringing it back to our council would be a good idea.
Terry, are you planning on presenting this at your strata meeting?
At our AGM?
Yeah.
We were hoping that it would have been resolved by the AGM. Right? Like, see everybody. As a matter of fact, you guys, our owners don't, for the most part, don't even have a clue that it's changed. And the way I found out about it was owners started to set up their units according to the bylaw that they bought under, and all of a sudden started getting stuff from the city about these move-on fees and setbacks and all this kind of stuff, and they started phoning me and saying, "What the heck did you sell us?" Right? Like, you told us this is what it was. And then I phoned Scott and I said, "What is this?" And he says, "Oh, we dumped your bylaws in the lake and there's a new one."
Yeah, okay. Well, we're close. Sorry, go ahead, Ian.
Well, I think it probably needs some more time at the staff level is kind of what I'm thinking here. I'll be honest with you, Terry, we had a discussion at council, what was it, a month ago? And it was about it was about a shed that doesn't have anybody in it. And we had a discussion about the setbacks, and that vote at council went 4-3 to allow that unit to go forward with the variance of the setbacks. And I think that was a meter, wasn't it? Where were we on that one?
It was on Greg's property, I
On
think.
Greg's property, yeah. So there is I don't want to tell, I don't want to give you a wrong impression here that you go to council, that this is necessarily something like that gets resolved. I don't want you to have that impression. So if from my opinion, I think we go back at the staff level, try to come up with something that is workable on a staff level, a fire safety level, and all these other aspects that council will have to consider. Then maybe that's probably the best course of action at this point. I think taking it to council with a 0.5 setback, there's going to be, I can't speak for all council, but I can just tell you based on the conversation that already happened at council, there would be probably some concerns around that. Definitely some questions would be asked, and I would say a robust discussion would happen as to that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Ian. And just one other thing, Terry, too, is I know not only your park, but there's another park we're working on too that are getting ready. Theirs similar to yours or whatever. And so staff is working with other parks and trying to come up with the right solution for all of Sycamoose. So I just wanted to inform you on that too.
I guess I appreciate your remarks. I guess the important thing is that I would ask that you remember about today's meeting is they've agreed that we can go to 0.5. In this covenant, they've agreed to 0.5.
Mhm.
According to Scott, the fire chief has agreed, all the staff has agreed to the 0.5.
Could we just clarify that? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you up, but for my mind, I want to have that clarified. What are we actually talking about? Because what I understood here is that between structures, you want 1.5 meters. And is that correct?
Go ahead, Scott.
We actually want 1.5. We want 3 meters between structures.
Okay.
So if you're going from the imaginary property line, it'd be 1.5 on each side. So we're saying we're willing to change that, go to 0.5 from the imaginary line, but we still want to maintain the 3 meters between structures.
And where Terry's going, it's not right for the guy next door who buys a lot. He can't build out his Arizona deck because the other guy's only 0.5 from the fence, and now he's got to be, like you say, 10 feet from it.
And exactly, Gordon, what I'm saying is if you want it, that's so easily covered off with building permits, because everybody, now that we know that the district wants them, certainly we being the resort is going to be asking people, did you get your building permit to put that on? And like I say, we weren't the Wild West. We had one building inspector that lived in there. They rented a lot there. They knew what the owners were doing. They weren't hiding behind the district.
Yeah.
Right? What was his name? Jackson. Yeah, he lived there, for God's sakes. Like, it wasn't like we were running and hiding. But what I would ask you to consider is why we would like our old zoning back is because it was established in 2019, it was approved by mayor and council, it was approved by staff, it was approved by the fire chief. Then it's the same thing as what we're doing today. And rather than have it in writing that, or this covenant, it's a pointless covenant. Go back to our old zoning, and if you want to put something in that, I'm sure that the owners would agree, right, to establish that, to make sure building in
Inspections.
and they would have to be fireproof, right?
Yeah.
And we also have a problem with storage lots that was taken away from us. So.
Okay. Well, let Scott finish, and then because we're going to have to move on, but Scott, you go ahead and finish, and then I'll make some comments.
What touched this whole off, and it was a phone call to Terry that someone called and said, and probably in tears, hey, I can't put the unit I want to put on because the district is telling me no. They had a park model and a factory built park model and a factory built sunroom, and they wanted to put it on their property with the 0.5 meters from each side. And they were like, now I'm told I need a building permit for it. I've already poured my pad. I've already ordered this unit. This unit is going to show up with 0.5 meters on each side. So that causes their neighbors, automatically their neighbors are going to be affected. So that's why we want to make it clear that we need that 3 meters, but also the siting permit. So they're not pouring their pad first. They're not ordering something from the factory just based on the 0.5. So it's kind of many layers of protection that we're trying to offer and just going forward, so everybody's clear on what they're buying into. I think Terry's exactly right. It's going to affect your neighbor. The guy next door is going to have to downsize, or you're going to have to downsize yourself when you're ordering your unit. It's complicated.
So, okay.
Just one question, or we actually have that 1.5 or 3 meters between each unit and that's it, right? That could be the other options.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's several things here, really. Yeah, sorry, I'm asking a lot of these questions because this is the first I've heard that there's been issues, but as a counselor, I suspect this is going to come. So I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around all of the ins and outs of it as well. So it's going to be an important decision, I think.
Okay, we're not there yet, Terry. So if you could give us just a little bit more time. I know staff's working on it, and it's not only your development, there's other developments, and we're trying the whole amendment to the zoning bylaw. We'd like to try to wrap them all together and do them all at once. But we're close, but we're not there yet. So we recognize you're passionate about, you'd like your old zoning back, and maybe it is a site specific with some conditions, but we recognize that for sure.
But when I was, because I wasn't aware of this and wasn't at the meeting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was reading the minutes from the when you had your approvals, I understand like in September it got approved, and then it actually got canceled in December and reapproved because there was some properties that the district recognized should have site-specific zoning on. Is that correct? That's going to be a reason.
I mean, if there is some that wanted site specific, and you guys weren't.
It was on.
Well, I don't know about any big developments or stratas like that, but I think, we did request that the staff go out to stratas or developers and make sure that we got it right. But that's one of the problems, like even in our short-term rentals bylaw, we thought we were dealing with the president, but the strata came along and overruled it, so sometimes we get even confused on who we're dealing with. So, and sometimes we need, in any kind of development, we need a letter of agent form because we give notice to the strata and they might not even respond. Like your strata obviously didn't read anything. Didn't look in the paper, didn't get any notice in the mail,
No, and the thing is, and certainly staff here has contacted before. In a strata like ours, we have a strata management company and the district knew that. All that they had to do was contact them, and then the owners would have got out there. The letter of authority, Milo and I have a letter of authority that staff has that we can speak on behalf of the strata here today.
Okay, and when was that's already been done? You guys already signed that? Okay.
You have it? I've
got something, I'm not sure who it's from, Keystone Property Manager, and so we have a separate agent form that we normally get, and I'm not sure Keystone is your property manager.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and like I say, we've got some homework to do, and we're just about there, and what we'll have to do is spend a little bit, have staff spend a little bit more time on it, because we'd like to try to do this amendment again to the zoning bylaw just once, not for every different development. So we'd bring it all to council. So we'll try to get it like in the next, I'm not sure if we can get it done in the next, Kelly, you might want to comment on that.
Yeah, no, I just wanted some clarity. So just as we navigate through this next bit. So what has happened is their setbacks were 0.5 meter. Now they've been moved to 1.5, and they're requesting it to be 0.5 meter. That's the one of the larger issues, and you don't want a variance. You want it embedded in your zone. And so this is where we need to navigate, take a look at those setbacks and determine, you know, is that 1.5 meters reasonable? Can it be 1 meter for that zone? Because what we do for this zone, we'd like to apply to all of our other RVP zones, because we have 2 larger developments in the future, and these issues in terms of setbacks, Arizona rooms, they're going to continually happen. So we want something that works for everybody, including yourself, and recognizing that there's some historic zone issues there. So I just wanted to say that, and it's like, are you okay with us parking this variance as we look at the zone and the setbacks?
Yes, definitely, we will. But if you read the whole thing, if you want to go through it right now, it doesn't make any sense, the whole document, right? It says if we don't start the development, whatever that means, within 2 years, then the development will lapse. Well, what development do we have to start? Who has to start it? When is, like, the document makes absolutely no sense, right? What, that's the way it reads, Scott. Tell us, what development?
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, it's pretty standard wording in every development variance agreement or development permit that the development has to start within 2 years or the variance lapse. In this case, it would apply to all the existing units, so it would have commenced, you know, immediately.
Okay,
Okay, but what has to start, Scott? What development has to start?
And it's
well,
the units being placed on, so development exists, right? So it's you're going back in time, but if it was a future development, it would be whatever the variance is varying. So this case, it's setbacks.
But no, tell us what development has to start within 2 years, according to your proposed covenant.
That the development of a strata RV park.
We got it.
Yes.
We don't need it.
it's already developed.
So why is that covenant on there, right? It makes no sense. It just absolutely, and like I say, the confusion is gonna be in the future for both the district and Mark.
Yeah.
Because somebody's gonna pull that up, they're gonna say, what the heck, right? What does this mean? The other thing that when we talk about, you're right, Kelly, the strata would live with the new zoning because we're already developed. The 2 things are the setbacks for the RV sites and the storage sites. Those were what were negotiated that got changed. Okay, so the storage lots and the RV lot setbacks.
Yeah, okay,
Right?
let's work on it. We know where you're coming from, Terry, and we're still not there yet. So why don't staff will do a little bit more homework and we'll reach out to you and we'll sit down and, like I say, we can.
And again, I'm just gonna shut up after this, Gord, but remember that what is in that covenant is fire chief, everybody has agreed. They're not opposed to the 0.5. It's the other side that we're concerned about.
Yeah, okay, Brett, go ahead.
Can I make a quick point here? I keep hearing that the fire chief has agreed to this 0.5. Had I known that we were going from, I think it was 3 meters at the time, down to 0.5.
It's from 1 meter to half a meter.
Yeah, sorry, 1 meter to half a meter. I don't think realistically I would have been okay with it. And especially back in 2019, I was full-time chief at the time. So I'm not exactly sure how that came to be, but honestly, it's being stated that the fire chief agrees with this. Fire chief does not agree with this.
Okay, I think maybe council will maybe overrode your ruling or something like that, but thanks for stating that, Brett. I appreciate it. Terry?
Again, I was at all those meetings. Brett was at those meetings. If you look at who was at those meetings, you'll see that he was there. And he did not oppose it at that time. Like,
Okay.
or there was no overruling of anything at the time.
Okay, no, thanks for that information. And what we'll do is like I say, we'll do a concerted effort and get this thing wrapped up and get you guys back in the room and make sure you're happy. That's what we want to do.
I thank you all, and I apologize to the people that are waiting to get on with that.
Okay.
It's okay, important, but
Okay, well, thanks very much, Terry.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Scott and staff, Brett and Kenny. Thank you very much, and Kelly. Okay, Deb's good there. Okay, moving right along. 1961 Salt Squaw Sycamoose Road access. Scott, do you want to give us an update before we hear from Brent and Greg?
Sure, I can. Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, we have Brent Graff here. He's the owner of 1961 Sycamoose Salt Squaw Road. And then we have Greg Darrow. He's one of the owners of 21 Hillier Road. As you can see on the drawing, the outline of 1961 Sycamoose Salt Squaw Road. So that's the property that Brent owns. To get access to his property, he comes off Sycamoose Salt Squaw Road and then he crosses the tracks. And then he gets access to his property south of that. And essentially that access is, he wouldn't be allowed to develop his property in any way with that access across the tracks. CP rail approval would be required and CP probably would not allow any development across the tracks. I guess historically, when it was a pole yard, Brent had access through a gate to get to and from his property, and he no longer has that access. Both properties were in the agricultural land reserve. They were identified as being suitable for residential use, and they were removed from the agricultural land reserve. Number of different iterations of development of the property have gone through, and on some of the early iterations, there was access. There was a right of way provided to Mr. Graff's property through this property. So Mr. Graff is, came to council. He wants to get that access so he can move forward with a residential development of his property. And he just wants council assurance that he'll get that access. But yeah, Brent and Greg are both here. If you want to hear from them.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Who do you want to start with? Greg, you want to just kind of give us a little history of when you took over the property? And I know a lot of the ALR letters and stuff like that are to the old owners. You bought it from the McVeighs and the Audis and that some time ago. So yeah, just give us a little brief update and your thoughts.
It goes way back. I did glance through some of that package that, that's got put together, and all of that ALR stuff was way back in the day before me, with Andy McVeigh and all of that crew. That is a revision, way back that we did do, with what we thought the market was. And I do remember discussions, and it might have been Karen, it could be Charles, like it goes way back, that they wanted, should I develop that in residential, which is that drawing, that they wanted a laneway. That laneway was for fire. That was requested by the fire department if they had to get there for fire. It's not a public street. It's just a laneway. There's some drawings that showed a cul-de-sac going on to Brett's property, like, if we extended it. But those were concept drawings. We did, have the zoning approval. We did have all of that back in the day. Then Mike Mars got involved with some of the stuff, and you can see the line where the park changes and everything. So the district, when we put the lift station in, wanted park plan, and he wanted to do a whole bunch of adjustments and everything. And we went through that whole thing. But the reality is, over time, the use, the vision of the use changed. We couldn't build homes in there because of structural fill, because of the drop off and the flood level of the Eagle River. So the cost to put structural fill in was probably 2 meters. I did that analysis when we did the application for the art, was going to be $1.2 million to bring in, to haul enough fill in to build the lands up because of the 200-year flood of the Eagle River, and to put homes on it. you'd have to sell a lot for 350,000. It just didn't work. So, you know, we presented to council about an RV portion. Some Gord would remember that. We're gonna put RV pads in there. I did work with Brent at that time, because I said to Brent, you know, you've got an opportunity to put RV pads in. And I did do a drawing that encompassed my property, Brent's property. There was going to be a bit of a road that bore for future that would have gone along the backside of my storage units. But that application, rezoning application, everything got declined by council. Right, and it just never went ahead. You know, everybody was notified, everything. So then we jumped onto the mobile home park scenario, right, which is under construction there now. And then that one parcel on this direction, that was industrial. And I said, well, I need more storage facility. And we talked about rack storage. There's a huge need for rack storage and everything. So we rezoned this parent parcel we're talking about to industrial and rezoned the industrial at the front for mobile home park.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it all went through council, it all went through public hearings, it all went through notices to Brent, the neighbors, everybody, and it got approved. So I feel for Brent. I understand what he's asking for. He's a good neighbor, other than his house is on my property. And I built back to take him into account so he doesn't have to move his house with all the fill.
Can I just say, Greg, you and the previous owner bought the property, which legally stands out that you bought the property knowing that 32 square feet of my house, which I never even built, was built in 1992 before council had anything. You bought it that way, knowing it. And you never asked anything to move it. The original owners never asked. The Andy McVeigh and Howie Vinci who bought it never asked. You've never asked. So this is a non-anything about my house being on your land. Bring that up because you want to just bring.
I know it's a non-issue. It's a non-issue. Let's leave it alone.
We're moving, worked ahead. So I guess, you know, in that drawing there shows that was done by Vinci where the cul-de-sac's actually on Brent's property before mine. So I've gone through many revisions over the years. They've all gone through public hearings. They've all gone through council. They've all been voted on or declined or whatever. It is what it is today. I'm here today out of total respect for staff and council, total respect, but this is not my problem. I'm zoned, I'm moving ahead. I got a meeting at 10:30 with engineers from out of town, North Steel Buildings from out of town. You know, Sarah's well aware of the applications we've made. Council's approved me to put a 52-foot high rack storage building on that property. And I need it for my project at Mara Hills.
Yep.
Brian Winter out at 2 Mile. We have a shortage of place to put boats. That is a reality. It's just a reality in the community. You know, for me to put a road through there now, we might as well just leave that property for tax sale. Like, you know, I would just do that a lot. You know, it's, you can't come back 10 years later and say, you know, we now need a road through there.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from, Greg. Services are all in, you're getting ready to pave and all that?
We have signed off with the district, like we've done the first part of bonding and everything was bonded for the cul-de-sac and I haven't paid it. The services are all in, that's been worked through district engineering, everything. And I'm not paving it because because of construction, dump trucks going back and forth, it just beats the curbs and everything.
Yeah.
And but don't know, Scott's well aware of where we're at with that road extension. It's been all through the proper channels.
Okay, well, no, thanks for that, Greg. Thanks for that information. And yeah, we'll just have Brett come up and do a little short presentation and we'll figure out where to go from here.
So do you need me to stay?
Well, we might have some questions for you, if you don't mind, or you got a meeting at,
Oh, I got 10 minutes.
oh yeah, okay, sure.
Well, Mr. Drow here says that I'm a great neighbor, which I believe I am. I've sat there for 18 years watching him build this project. I've been sanded out, I've been dusted out. I've got a fence running down my property line that looks like a security yard, which I don't quite get how he got it on the property line when there's supposed to be all these setbacks for stuff for commercial property, residential property. He tells a story of not knowing about all this, which he's known about it all along. I've had many discussions with him about the access. What this comes down to is an issue with the city and the government, because it's a land beyond problem that needs to be addressed, that has been addressed, that he says, oh, I don't know anything about it. He's known about it all along. It's a land beyond problem in the Land Titles Act that I am a property on the other side who has no services and no access. Brett would probably tell you that he said 12 minutes to get to Silver Sands. I have trains that park at my house for an hour. I've been late to stuff. I've been late to council meetings because the trains blocked me in. So an hour for my house to burn down. You think Mr. Drow wouldn't want that because it would burn down part of his storage units. There is no safe access to my place. He's known about it forever. It was in there with the right of way. This plan actually is something that I had done up with Mike Mars, because if you look where they had a laneway, and I said, well, why would you do that? Why would we not just bring it through so that my land is developable and would fit into the Lands Beyond Act in the Land Titles Act? The city has an issue with this. It is his problem. It's the city's problem. It's actually a battle between you and him and the city to who is going to give access and who's going to pay for the access to come through there, so that I have what the BC government legally says I have to have at my property, which is access. And because of the Land Beyond Act, there's nothing else to be debated here. It's either the city, and the city is going to live up to its requirements of what it stated when I got my land out of the ALR, and come to fruition of that, which has been 18 years now. I've been sitting here 18 years on my land waiting for a right of way that should have been had put in on its very first development process. But it got put on hold because he took a big 30-acre parcel of land and he split it up into pieces. And at that point, the requirement was that it should have all the accesses put in. He didn't do it. He somehow got his way through that he didn't have to do that. And now 18 years later of sitting and waiting for this access to come through, every time there's a new development manager or a new chief executive officer, he has a new proposal and he brings it in, and now this time it's taken out all the right of way. The other ones have had right of way in it. He claims he had an RV park put in. There was no discussion with me about the RV park. There was no discussion about my place being put in. Originally also, when he bought the property, they did engineered dirt in there. They spent tons of money, I agree. They had an engineer sitting there every day watching it go in and packing it properly so they could do the residential building. So all that was done. Now all as it's done is he's found more money in boat storage, which, okay, great. Sycamore has no housing even. So we're supposed to house more boats than we are houses. This is ridiculous. And to take another 5-acre parcel and make it so there's no housing on that now either, other than one house, is absolutely insane. I don't get why the city has not progressed on this over 18 years and told him as he was developing it that, listen, there's lands beyond. It's written in the Land Title Act that he has to address lands beyond on his property. And he knows that. He's developed tons of stuff. He knows it. But if he can get away with the city not doing that and getting his way, obviously he's going to make more money at this. I'm just the guy who's been living there for 30 years now, waiting 18 of it, breathing in the dust that every time I'd ask, I'd phone Muntz, I'd phone Greg, I'd email Greg and tell me, you know what? Your dump trucks are making so much dust, I can't even sit on my patio. You know when I finally got action? I phoned John, the city bylaw officer. He's written these guys, he's told me everything. You know when I finally got action? Is when I phoned WorkSafe BC. Guess what? Next day there was a water truck there. Next day they were shut down for 2 days until that water truck showed up, because I've been breathing silica dust for 18 years of him building. I've been sitting there listening to air nailers. I've been sitting there listening to pavers at 6 in the morning. The city bylaw officer, basically his hands were tied and have been, and I totally understand it.
And Brett,
But WorkSafe BC has come through and said, no, this isn't proper. The BC government is saying lands beyond needs to be addressed. The city needs to deal with Mr. Duro and get this problem solved.
yeah, Brett, this is I mean, I know you guys have a battle going between you two of you, but this is beyond us. This is actually a legal issue. I mean, lands beyond is not our, I know utilities maybe, but lands beyond, I mean, you do have access on the other side. I know the railway's there, but there is access on the other side of Canby Saltsville Road, which was your legal access in the beginning. Was there ever a statutory right of way registered on title to get to your land from Hillier Road? No. So, I mean, we're not going to be able to solve this today. We just wanted to listen to Greg and listen to you and hear you out.
It's the city's requirement to follow the Land Titles Act when they go through the development process. Corey.
Okay, no, and we appreciate that. Okay, so let's, I don't think it's something that this planning committee is going to recommend to council right away. I think there's some legal issues that have to be looked at. And it'll have to go to council, but I don't think the planning committee can say, yeah, we agree with Brent or we agree with Greg.
I totally understand that. I'm just trying to bring to evidence that there are major issues with the provincial government's Land Title Act that the city has not addressed. And it's the city's job to address that in his development.
And we recognize where you're coming from. And like I say, we'll hand it back to staff and let them do some more homework on it. And you've already did a presentation to council and they're aware of it. So, you know,
Just quick background of lands beyond. I'm pretty familiar with development. A lot of that in BC. So, you know, there probably was a discussion with staff way back then, right? Way back when, but when we developed the 30-acre, there's, you know, where the hydro substation is on the road. And then of course, my property is 250 meters. It starts from the road. So the district then said, okay, you're bringing services from that road to your property because I'm having to pay for that and all of that cost. You don't do that unless it's state cover agreements. And the district back in the day said, we're not doing latecomer agreements. You don't have to do lands beyond, or they would have registered. It would have been done. You know, they used back in that time before nobody was in the district back then. You know, I think they used true engineering. Like everything was subbed out. Everything was subbed out to other professionals.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't have been not done.
okay, thanks, Greg. Appreciate that.
Just before Greg leaves, number one, it'd be wonderful if you two could work out, you know, access to your property and, you know, come to an agreement as neighbors. I don't know if that's gonna happen. And then I think maybe as the second part, I think Brent, maybe seeing a plan that you want to do, like to develop that property and presenting that to this group. And let's just figure out what you can do and what kind of access you are going to be required. And then
You have a plan right there, Scott. What I can do.
and I think
I've got around, but I'll give you some advice. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on engineers in my lifetime. I'm very, very experienced. You know, 18 years ago was 18 years ago. Today, we have codes today that we have to live with. Rising water, global warming, call it what you want, is a huge, huge issue. No disrespect, your land has to be brought up. You've got riparian area setbacks. You have to bring your land up. No, you.
Gone too wrong.
Yeah.
Bill,
I'm gonna debate you guys. We're not gonna debate it.
so. I think Greg might have a point, and I think Brent, we need to figure out what exactly you
Yeah,
do.
you'll see Scott.
Let's figure out the
And
next step for you, and then we'll figure out what kind of access you require, and then hopefully Greg would help us out with that.
Hey, sounds good.
But I have my doubts that he'll help with anything because he hasn't done anything through 18 years of doing it. So why would he
Don't-
need to find out?
Greg has done a lot up there in 18 years.
Okay, we're not gonna debate that right now. Okay, well, that's our plan. When Scott, you'll sit down with Brent and we'll see what he wants to do with his property. And Greg, we appreciate you coming up from Vernon and we appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, Brent, you're good with that?
Not much I can't do. I mean, I honestly know that I've dealt with Greg for 18 years over this, and what you're hoping is gonna happen is not gonna happen because he won't do anything. He wants 2 5-story buildings for his boats. He literally has done so much to destroy my property, to devalue it. He's undermined everything that I could possibly. He's telling you right now that all this fill has to go in. Yes, it does. But there is enough development in the end of just that. And I've had repairing assessments. I brought it down from 100 meters down to, or from 100 feet down to 50 feet. I have a repairing expert who's come in there and told me everything I need to do. I've gone through the process. I know what I need to do to put in what I need to put in. I know how much fill I need to put in. I know everything about it. He makes it sound like it's a great big thing. Well, he's put in millions of dollars of fill. Why? Because he's made millions of dollars in profit. If I put $1 million of fill in and I sell the place, every one of those lots, and that's a small one. That's only the 7 lots. At $500,000 a piece, that's $3.5 million. If I put $2 million worth of fill in, $500,000 worth of services, I'm still made $1 million. That to me is an equal amount of money that I would do.
Okay, well, it's doable, and we'll let you and Scott and Sarah work it out. And it'll come back to the planning, or it'll come right to council.
I think Brent, like, I think we have to figure out what you want to do and what is doable and what kind of access you require. And then we can go back and look at the access.
See, and that's what I'm trying to state, is that this was a problem that should have been dealt with 18 years ago. And now it's become a massive problem that wasn't dealt with then. And the solution then was exactly what's up there. And Mike Mars agreed. He was the city planner before that. He came up with that idea. He said, Brent, this is what you got to do. And this is what needs to go in, because Charles Nash and Karen and everybody said, Brent, you got to have a plan. So there was a plan. Mr. Duro was all against it at that point because he didn't want to put in what he legally had to do. And he sidestepped it. Daryl Troughton came in here and changed the development process to where you only need to put in a little bit of road to every lot you're going to build, and changed everything at that point. And Greg Duro jumped on that like right now. So he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to put in that series.
We got it, Brent, and we'll, like I say, let's you and the planning department sit down and get it sorted out and figure out where we're gonna go, and we'll do some homework on it.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Yeah, the other question that word is, okay, we do all that, we get it all set in. 2 years from now, Mr. Duro hangs off, comes in with a new plan, new council. How is it gonna hold? I just saw it with Terry's thing that he did a development now and all the rules are changing on him again. Like where's the guarantee in this? That if we get something settled, Greg agrees to it, but he decides he's not gonna do it for 2 years because the trick that he does all the time is wait for new people to come in, and then he changes things.
Yeah, well, things change all the time, and like I say, even our zoning bylaw changes, and
BC building code changes.
everything changes, so it's something we have to work with, and I mean, I can't guarantee anything, and I don't think staff can guarantee anything what the future is gonna be like. And it depends how long it's gonna take you to develop as well, you know?
Well, I'm ready to go. I've been ready for 18 years because I thought, wow, this is coming. He'd have to do this, and it never happened. So
yeah. Okay, well, we'll work on it. And Ian, you want to?
Yeah, I think what everyone's trying to say, we're trying to give you a bit of a path to go forward, really. And what Scott's trying to say is if you have a plan, bring it, and then council would be able to take a look at it and put this all into kind of context. Right now, you're asking for access. I guess the question is, what type of development would you want on there? Is it condos? Is it houses? Is it mixed use? I mean, I don't know what a zoned is right now, but that does matter in terms of what the access would have to look like for a lot of different services. So I think that's the conversation you should have with Scott and the planning department. And then that gives us a better idea of what a potential go forward plan would be. So I think people are trying to start a conversation and here.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah,
this needs to happen. Like it needs to happen because it leaves me in a spot where I have to make a decision legally what I'm going to do.
Well, that
end up in a nowhere land, right? Like not just the development. That crossing was put in 1972. Okay, houseboats were way smaller, cranes were way smaller. there weren't hour-long delays. Like I said, what happens if my house catches on fire? I don't have fire hydrant services at my house. I don't have city water of any sort. I don't get any services yet. I pay for that on my taxes. I've been paying for years on it. I don't have any of that. I don't get what everybody else in this city gets. And that's a big problem there too, that I just don't have the services. If my house lit on fire and a train was stopped there, it's burning to the ground. Right? Well, my insurance looks at that too.
Yeah.
And they say, well, you have this. My insurance is higher than the average house owner because of the train.
Yeah.
Now, yes, I bought my property that way, but there is a remedy for it. And that's the biggest problem, is there's a remedy, and we need to come up with that.
Okay,
That remedy.
thanks, Brent. No, appreciate your concern, and like I say, we'll see what you come forward with Scott, and we'll see where we go next. Okay? Well, Mary,
Yes, with the development going over there, and there already is a development that's gone in there. Carnival was a mud bog. It was literally a mud bog. I don't think that development would be there today without probably millions of dollars of fill. The only reason it is there is because they took, when they three-laned the highway up here, all that, I'm just saying at a point to be somebody that's realized, all that filled in over there. Ed worked there, and then it was like paradise to drive around in there.
yeah,
Now with the bridge going in, I don't know how much fill is gonna be there and where they're gonna have to take it to. Just as a point of interest, maybe it could go over into the
Absolutely.
development. And I really believe it's a safety issue, that there should be access. Here's a log house back there.
Yeah, on the one on the other side.
On the other side.
Ralph's old place has an access because he comes off of
Yeah,
that road.
that's right. But if
I'm on the other end.
you want to the other end,
Yeah.
not nip down.
Yeah, I have to drive after over the early tracks.
No, I
Then you
realize
down
that.
off the road and back over the earlier tracks to my house,
Yeah.
which seems redundant that you'd have to do that.
okay, well, thanks very much, appreciate it, Mary.
Involved with that end,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to bring up.
No, it's good history, you got lots of history here for sure. Okay, well, we'll move right along. Item C, 22-231 development permit, 22-231 development variance permit, 69 Main Street.
I think the hard ones are sound.
Let me just read the recommendation, then we'll go for discussion, okay? That the Planning and Development Committee recommend council authorize the issue of a development permit 22-331 DP to permit the development of screening, landscaping, and fencing of the development variance permit number 22-331 DVP to vary the maximum permitted height of fence and hedging within 6 meters of the driveway access or road right of way to 2 meters for the properties legally described as lots 11, 12, and 13, except parcel A block D or D, District Lot 452, Kamloops Division, Yale, Plan 5151, located at 469 Main Street. Can I have a mover? Ian, seconder? Deb? Okay, discussion. Let's hear a little update from Sarah first.
All right. So it is I, Sarah Martin, planner for the District of Sicamous, coming to you live and online via YouTube and Zoom. So this is the location. I think we're all very familiar with the location of the El Dorado Mobile Home Park. Looks like I missed outlining one of the parcels. It is an older park, so it is of course non-conforming in terms of siting across the parcel boundaries. So that's where it is, right on the corner of Main Street and Paradise, kind of at the main entrance to the district. Next slide, please. Here's another visual without the ortho to help make that a little clearer. So it's designated within the town center under the official community plan, and it's zoned MHP1 Mobile Home Park. Next slide. So what is being proposed here? So just a little bit of background. The owner came to us last year in the fall. The fire department had a program where they were going around and helping property owners out dealing with potential wildfire fuel on properties. So they helped out the owner here and went along and lifted the crowns of a lot of the trees and dealt with a lot of material. So I guess the the tenant in site 12, which is shown in green here, I'll maybe point as well. They've lost a lot of privacy from Main Street. So as we know, that's our main drag through town. So there's a lot of vehicles going by. So they wanted to be able to replace that screening. They wanted to put in cedar hedging, which of course is not a fire smart plant. So the fire chief was concerned about that and recommended that they follow fire smart procedures. So since that time, this file was put on hold for a bit. The owner was not well. So since then, the son-in-law has come forward and wants to move this forward. So what I suggested to him is what I suggested to the owner originally, which was let's look at this as a whole and recognize that the park is kind of in the middle of downtown and is going to need some kind of screening going forward potentially. So let's do a development permit and a variance so that as needed, as part of normal management of the park, they can put in more fencing or screening as they want to. So right now, they just want to deal with site 12. But this would allow them to go forward and not have to come back again with the other sites. So that's why we're talking about variances at the lot line for both fencing to increase the height for privacy and looking at a development permit to speak to form and character and provide a nice, easy way for residents to see what kind of plants they can plant. So the development permit does include a list from the Fire Smart Manual. Of course, they could do anything else as long as it's from the Fire Smart Manual. There's a lot of species, but we pulled out a few that would be appropriate in terms of meeting the goal of screening, as well as, you know, helping to keep our form and character in our town center up to snuff.
Okay.
So you can kind of see here. So fence height variance from 1.2 meters to 2 meters. So 1.2 is what you would typically see along a road frontage or along a driveway. Everywhere else on properties like interior and rear setbacks, it would normally be 2 meters. So we're just proposing to bump that up to what you would see on the other lot lines for privacy reasons. And then the landscaping height from 0.9 meters to 2 meters. Again, this has to do with driveway accesses and road sight lines. And so we're proposing we move it up to 2 meters consistent with a fence. And you can kind of see like there's a fair bit of room between the actual paved road and the parcel boundary. So I don't think this is going to be an issue for sight lines. We've got an image here of the proposed fence as well. So
Okay.
that's your fence.
All right, sounds good. Thanks very much, Sarah. Discussion. Anybody have any comments? Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, just a few comments. So Hans and I, the owner that passed away, go back a long way. We've had a lot of discussions about this. He was concerned about trying to do things that Communities in Bloom would be on side with. Plus, him and I were both mobile home park owners, so we had a lot of discussions around a lot of things. So I know that he was very concerned about doing something that was attractive and having something consistent along Main Street. My issue with the wood fence is that they just don't tend to be maintained. So my suggestion would be something along the lines of what Natalie Sir-Kilmo has over at the bus stop, where it's kind of a combination of metal and wood. I think it would be more in keeping with the form and character of Main Street, but it would also be, you know, like less of a maintenance issue. When I owned Mara Lakeview, and it wasn't, I'm a good park owner, but when you've got a lot of different expenses and things on the go, the last thing that gets dealt with is, you know, how good a shape your fence is in. It's just a practical reality. And that's Main Street. It's got to look good. So I just think the more we can go with something that is lower maintenance and will look good without ongoing maintenance, I think it's just a better solution.
Okay, thanks, Deb. That's it?
Yep.
Can I chime in? I'm the new manager of the park.
Okay, state your name, please.
Alan Baran.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Go ahead.
Yeah, really great summary. I proposed the wood fence because it's what I'm used to, and I thought it would be lower maintenance than the original kind of cedar hedging that was proposed. And for a wood fence, you can stain it every few years. I would like to use treated wood, which has a bit of a green hue initially, and then after a few years it fades, and you can paint it with like a stain to make it look nice. If a wood board goes missing, you can replace it. It never goes out of stock. You've seen wood fences forever. There's an example one that was quoted to us. I'm actually not familiar with the metal and wood fence that you were talking about, but I could imagine it would be even harder to maintain maybe if somebody's not used to that particular type of fence. But anyways, I would prefer to do the wood fence if that's possible. And again, the 6 feet or 2 meter variance is partly because the road crown is a couple feet higher than that property line where the fence would go. So it's almost like the fence would still be at a 4-foot level, just with how the road is so much higher, and that's going to offer a lot of privacy and just better visuals blocking the trailer from the main road there.
Yeah, just, sorry, through
Go
the
ahead,
chair,
Deb.
just to be clear, I have no issue with, I totally agree with the variance going to the 2 meters.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Go ahead, John.
I agree quite a bit with Deb on the whole maintenance aspect of it, and one other thing I just totally out there. On Swansea Point, they use that concrete style fence. That actually eliminates a lot of sound as well, which is actually beneficial to the tenant of the park. So it's extremely low maintenance, being a concrete fence, sound barrier as well. So that helps the tenants inside the park. And if we're looking for a long-term solution, it has got no wood involved. It is concrete, you know, it's gonna last long-term solution, not, you know, just my input on that one. I do think the cedar fence is also, if we remove shrubs for fire protection, cedar fence is just as flammable. It's dry. It's, I don't know, it seems a little odd to remove one fire hazard and add another one.
Yep, good point. Alan, I know I'm not sure what your budget's like. Concrete would be lovely, but because they do make some really nice ones. But have you looked at any of the cedar? They're basically you'd end up using cedar posts or concrete posts, but they're actual fence panel. Fence panel that actually is bordered with stained cedar wood, and then they have corrugated powder coated black metal. Is what Deb was proposing, or I'm pretty sure that's what Deb was proposing. Then Stu and Natalie did it over at the bus over by the Finlayson there, and it looks really attractive, and it's low maintenance because it's powder coated, and it's actually very reasonable priced. So have you ever thought of that?
Okay, I'd be willing to look into it. I'm just not familiar with it, so I can't really speak to it. My fear is budget. And then in terms of the cedar fence, I'd actually prefer to do the treated wood fence, which I imagine is a little bit less flammable than cedar. I know how cedar can be ignited pretty easily. I'm sure the treated wood is a little bit better, but I'm willing to look into that other style fence if people can send me some sort of contact so I can find out where it came from and who can install it.
Okay, we'll get Sarah to get that to you, and yeah, appreciate your comments, and good luck getting the fence put up, and just work with staff, and it's our main street, and we really want it to look good, and like I say, there's not a problem moving this forward today, and hopefully by the time it comes to council, we'll already have a remedy if that's
okay.
good.
Sounds good. Yeah, the one last one I had is there's a few trees remaining right on the line. And I'm wondering if in the future, if we want to cut those trees down because they become danger trees or something, how far we could extend the fence towards the entry road into the park. I'm not sure what the setback requirement is on where to end the fence next to that entrance road.
Well, I'd have to go look at it, but I mean, maybe Sarah could pop out and have a look at it and talk to you, maybe FaceTime you, and if you're not on site,
Yeah.
You guys can work it out, and she can bring it to council.
That'd be great. Okay.
Okay, great. All right, I had a mover or a seconder. Any more discussion? No, all right. All those in favor? Carried. I didn't see Deb, but I think she might be on there. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
But that's carried.
sorry. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, that's carried anyways, Deb. Thank you very much. All right, well, that's great. Well, I guess we'll have to adjourn this meeting. Recommend that the Planning and Development Committee meeting, April 19th, 2023 be adjourned at 10:20. And of a mover?
10:40.
10:40. Okay, sorry. Did I say 10:20? I did too.
Yeah.
Okay, Ian and John, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Scott, Sarah, Steffi,
Thanks,
Ellie,
Deb.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Little bit of a rodeo.